Welcome to the Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community, a space where justice meets action and community voices rise. Each episode, we bring you stories from the front lines, changemakers, disruptors, and everyday heroes who are building a more just, equitable, and liberated world. This is more than a podcast. It's a call to listen, learn, and move together. You were just listening to music from the incredibly talented Stephen Kong. You can find him on Spotify and Bandcamp. Today we have with us Bob Martin. Bob is the creator and host of The Flow, a commentary platform exploring politics, culture, and the human condition with clarity, courage, and the occasional well-placed laugh. A former prosecutor, defense attorney, clinical social worker, academic, and meditation and happiness mentor, he brings a rare combination of lenses to every conversation. His one goal: to help people understand the flow well enough to navigate it. Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I'm really excited about our conversation today. I think you do such wonderful work and have so many amazing perspectives. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Denise. Thank you so much for having me. The work that you do, having a podcast, it's not a little bit of work. And to give a place for somebody like me who has, some thoughts, and
Right.
I guess I can confess that I'm kind of passionate about my thinking, but to have a place where I can come on and express those thoughts is truly a gift. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that and thank you for acknowledging that. So, just starting off, you've lived what many would consider multiple careers and identities, so such as law, social work, teaching, and meditation. So, what do you feel like is a thread that connects everything together for you?
There is ultimately, I think that it wasn't there to begin with, but looking in backwards in retrospect, I would say that the thread that connects all of that is the sense of standing for something that's bigger than me. Standing for someone else, like when you're representing somebody else as a lawyer, standing for somebody else when you're advocating for social services that they need,
Right.
standing for someone else when you're looking at a bigger picture and helping them fit into that picture. All of those are kind of the thread that calls it together. And ultimately, I guess what I found out early on in life was that when it's all about me, I'm not a very happy person.
Okay.
But when everything is just about me and I'm egotistical and it's all about pride and being right and not being wrong and looking good, not a very happy way to live. But when you can start to step outside of yourself, you really find purpose and meaning. And I think that's what pulls it together.
Yeah, no, thank you. Actually, I wanted to ask you more about that. So, was there a moment that you felt that it shifted from, just achievements or like, having these different positions where it became like a deeper meaning for you?
Yeah, there actually was a moment that I
Oh,
can
there was? Okay, I'd
identify.
love to hear
Yeah,
about
there
that.
actually was.
Okay.
So I grew up in a kind of a carnival amusement park atmosphere.
Okay.
My folks had the cotton candy stand in a
Mm-hmm.
carnival, and I never expected that I was going to become a lawyer.
Okay.
But there was a weird set of circumstances, and that's a whole nother story. But
Okay.
somebody, a very nondescript person who you would never expect,
Mm-hmm.
kept telling me that I should be a lawyer and actually went out and paved the way for me to
Okay.
do that. And so I wound up in law school. On
Mm-hmm.
the very first day, there was one law school. I was a very mediocre student. There's one
Okay.
law school that accepted me, and
Okay.
all us first year students were sitting around in the hallway
Mm-hmm.
and waiting for our first class. And somebody said, well, what kind of a lawyer do you want to be? And everybody started going around the circle saying what kind of a lawyer they wanted to be.
Okay.
And I had no idea. I didn't have any idea.
Yeah.
And so when it came to me, I just said, I want to be a judge.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't expect that I ever would be a judge. I never did become a judge. But at that moment, there was a tingle that
Oh,
went through
okay.
my body. There was this little
Oh.
buzz that I just felt the tingle all over. And I thought, oh, wow, I actually could amount to something.
Mhm.
I actually could do something that has an import. And I just never thought of myself that way before. And I went from
Yeah.
being a mediocre student to graduating with a 4.0 average.
Wow.
And it was just like
Wonderful.
all the stops came out, and I just dove into it 100%.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. What a beautiful journey. And something about my own journey too. I think when I was younger, I always used to kind of be intimidated by politics. I was like, oh, I'm not a political person at all. But I think as I grew older, I learned more about that connection that the political is personal and also vice versa. Our personal lives can affect policy as well. So I know that you've done a lot of work around like power and policy. So were there times, or yeah, was there a moment when you realized that decisions have real impacts on people's lives?
Well, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, when you have a client and he's going off to jail for 20 years,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
that has a big impact in his life. Or you have a family man who's charged with something,
Oh,
who is looking at his whole life being fallen apart if he's incarcerated, but he didn't,
yeah.
and he's innocent, and the jury comes back and they say not guilty. That
Yeah.
has a big impact.
Yeah.
Sometimes, in teaching meditation, I have these days, I have this wonderful blessing, this privilege. I teach on campus, and I teach privately. I teach CEOs of big companies and
Hmm.
management type online, but I also teach college sophomores.
Oh,
And
okay.
every semester, I get 17 new minds who
Uh-huh.
are full of anxiety and catastrophizing and regrets and full of mind matter.
Okay.
And I get to work with them and look their logs and read their logs and respond to their logs. And
Hmm.
over the period of a semester, I get to see their minds change, and I get
Oh,
to see them
wonderful.
find some stability and begin to even change the language that they use. Instead of saying I have to do things, they start saying I get to do things.
Okay.
And I have the privilege of being there and witnessing that, and it is such a blessing.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And, I know we talked a little bit about this before the recording, but do you feel like there's a disconnect for people between like thinking of policies and seeing like how these kind of policies have real impacts on people? Because I don't know, I just feel like sometimes it feels so dehumanizing though. So I wonder if like people realize, I don't know. I think that's why I'm also trying to do this podcast, like putting human stories behind these like labels and stereotypes, because I think a lot of
Hmm.
times people are like reduced to like statistics and just
Hmm.
labels. So yeah, I just wonder, do you feel that way? Do you feel like people do have that disconnect between,
Oh yeah,
policy versus, yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we
How
look at
so?
we
Hmm.
look at the government like it's some kind of foreign alien entity up there
Oh,
in Washington or something like
right.
that, and that we're just not, either you're in it or you're out of it. If you're out of it, then you just feel
Hmm.
like it's a bunch of other people doing stuff. Now,
Hmm.
I worked with USAID, and I
Hmm.
got to see now the policy. If you remember when the Trump administration first took hold, they
Yeah.
had Elon Musk and his
Hmm.
cohorts formed the Dodge, whatever they called it, and they went around and basically disemboweled so many
Hmm.
agencies, including USAID. And here was an agency that had done indescribable good across the world.
Right.
Literally hundreds of thousands of lives saved, hundreds
Hmm.
of thousands of mosquito nets distributed,
Wow.
AIDS, children not being born, with AIDS, just hundreds of thousands, even millions of people affected. And all
Hmm.
of a sudden it's reduced to nothing. And even the food in
Right.
its warehouses starts to rot instead of being distributed. And it is literally heartbreaking to see that. But to answer your
Yeah.
question, I also teach law, and I
Okay.
teach kind of a survey of law. And of course, you can teach contracts. You can
Mm-hmm.
teach car accidents. You can teach things like that. But I take a good chunk of the time, and I
Okay.
teach what's called administrative law.
Okay.
That's and that's an odd one because most people don't think of that as an area to teach. But if you
Okay.
think about it, the Department of Justice, the Department of Energy, the Interior Department, all of these
Mm-hmm.
departments are where the rubber hits the road. It's where the
Okay.
government affects you. It's
Right.
where the
Right.
regulation, the fact that you have to go get your catalytic converter in
Mm-hmm.
your car, inspected
Right.
and make sure that it's working. That's the Department of Energy. That's a regulation that was made that affects you.
Yeah.
And so that's really where the rubber hits the road. And so I try to help them understand that you need to know what the administrative agencies are and
Right.
who's
Right.
running them and what the policies are so that you can get a feeling of, what your interaction with the government is.
No, I love that. So, I've also wanted to talk about this, but you've seen power up close. So, what does ethical leadership look like in practice and not just in theory?
I think Benjamin Franklin said, ethics is what you do when nobody's watching.
Right. No, I love that. Yeah.
It character counts. Character
Uh-huh.
counts.
Uh-huh.
And we have a lot of forces that are acting on folks today. I get a lot of Gen Zs in my class because they're sophomores, college sophomores, so they fit right
Right.
in the Gen Z thing.
Okay.
And they have they grew up in a world very different from the world that I grew up in. I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up in a world where television was just being introduced.
Uh-huh.
Black and white TV
Okay.
was just coming into living rooms when
Right.
I was growing up. And so my parents were very suspicious of that. But today, screen time starts, at a very young age, and
Right.
social media. These are very, very different forces that are working on people, and they also are very, very different mechanisms of information retrieval.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes our relationship with the world and our view of the world, because if everything I need to know is available to me at any time and instantly, then
Right.
I really don't have to learn anything.
Yeah.
And
Right.
what happens is curiosity seems
Mm-hmm.
to be a skill and a talent that is underdeveloped.
Right.
People aren't curious to know information just for information's sake,
Mm-hmm.
unless it has a purpose and it's for something that I need. And that is a very different view of the world than the world I grew up in.
Yeah, no, I've thought about that too because I was wondering like researching topics is probably like a lot easier for college students now. So, I remember when I was in college, we'd still go to libraries and, look at yeah, actual books and everything. But yeah, I just wonder, is that a way that like students still research though, actually going into libraries? Or yeah, I just feel like technology, as you said, it makes it so easy to have
Mhm.
access to information. But I wonder if people still like have that traditional way of research, at least like teaching, when they're younger.
Well, of course, one of the things as a teacher, you have to be
Oh,
aware of ChatGPT, and
right, right.
if you assign a written topic,
Uh-huh.
do you get that back something that they worked on, or do you get back something ChatGPT? So
Right.
what I've done, and I did this year for the very first time, I announced in the very first class
Mm-hmm.
that no computers and no phones would be allowed during class.
Okay.
Now, for the last 10 years, when I've been teaching, everybody would have their computers out and they would be working furiously on
Uh-huh.
their computers, even when I stopped talking. So they weren't taking notes. They
Oh,
were
okay.
distracted doing other things on their computer, like
Right.
multitasking. They thought they were
Right.
multitasking. So I got these big grumbles and mumbles from the class. What do you mean no computers? I said, no,
Mm-hmm.
I will give you a pad, not give you, I will construct for you a, 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 a little folio of papers that you
Uh-huh.
will use, that I will help you fill in during the class, and you'll
Mhm.
actually write in it. And then the quiz, the test will be based on that information that I give you.
Okay.
Anyway, I worked it out in such a way. They hated it to begin
Oh,
with.
okay.
But now that class is about halfway through, I'm hearing them saying, "Oh, they're really beginning to
I
understand
love that.
what I've been talking about way more than they have in previous classes, and they're remembering
I love
things."
that.
So, and they are taking pride now in knowing things,
Okay.
whereas before it was just a matter of acquiring the information long enough to be able to take the test and then it being meaningless.
Mm,
Now it's becoming meaningful to them because they're putting in the time and the effort to actually
okay.
engage it. So
Okay.
it makes a difference.
No, that's wonderful. So I have a daughter, she's 10 and she's part of
Mhm.
Gen Alpha. And I know that there's a lot of critiques that they're the iPad kid generation. And yeah, I think even I had to like watch out, like, oh, giving her something to do, like, oh, giving her a screen, but I had to be mindful of also doing that. But actually, I heard that they've been promoting to kids, at least my daughter, like the school that she goes to, they've been promoting like less screen time. So she even told me, I heard about a no screen time for a month. Mommy, can you participate with me? But then I realized, like, I rely a lot on screen time, but I'm like, if it teaches her to rely less on screen time, that's okay. So that's what I think I appreciate, though, that, like, at least in her school, they're promoting like less screen time, less technology, because I think there was a moment when people were worried that these younger kids are relying so much on technology right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was just a couple of days ago, there was a jury verdict in California where they awarded, was it $6 million
Oh,
to a
okay.
woman whose child
Mm-hmm.
became depressed and suicidal as a result of the
Right.
Facebook algorithms.
Mm-hmm.
And both Meta and YouTube were ordered to pay over $6 million in damages
Wow.
because not because of the content, but because of the way that they design
Mm-hmm.
the process
Okay.
of feeding you what you want,
Yeah.
there is a certain addiction that develops, and so the
Right.
jury agreed that it was addictive, and that they
Mm-hmm.
knew it was addictive, and that they
Yeah.
addicted people intentionally. So,
Yeah. No, no, I'm glad. Thank you for sharing then. Next I'd love to talk with you about the flow. So, you talk about the
mhm.
flow as understanding the forces acting on us. So, can you please break that down in a way that someone new to your work can grasp?
Sure, we're social creatures,
Uh-huh.
and we certainly know that we have a database. All of our experiences kind of go into the database,
Mm-hmm.
um, and they go into the database naturally through our biases and our filters.
Mm-hmm.
So what we get in our database may or may not be accurate information because it's
Right.
filtered by things that we pre-believe.
Mm-hmm.
So becoming aware of the information and what our beliefs are, and being willing to look at them analytically to
Okay.
see whether they're rational, and then so that's one set of forces that's
Mm-hmm.
acting on us.
Mm-hmm.
Another set of forces are the sources of the data that come to us.
Uh-huh.
And then the another set of forces that acted on us is all the people that we engage with, because
Mm-hmm.
they also have their own set of forces that are acting on them internally.
Oh, okay.
So all of that combined, creates a certain flow of energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll come out of a conversation with somebody, and you'll say, "Oh wow, that was I felt uncomfortable. Just we couldn't think of anything to talk about." So
Yeah.
that's a certain flow of energy. Then
Uh-huh.
there's sometimes you'll have conversations with people where everything's just clicking, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
having a great conversation. Everybody's on board. There are times when you feel like you're walking in molasses and just can't get
Right.
anything done. And there are other times when you feel like everything you do is just, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those are different flows,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of forces in the what creates that particular flow of energy is sometimes complicated. But the more aware we are of
Mm-hmm.
that flow and the energy of the flow, the
Yeah.
more we can regulate and adjust ourselves to go with the flow more effectively and efficiently.
Yeah.
It's like the metaphor that I like to use is being on a river.
Okay.
Now, if you're going with the flow and the river is
Mm-hmm.
nice and smooth, and you're in a boat, and all you have to do is kind of like steer it a little bit so that you don't hit
Yeah.
a rock or something, that's one way of going with the flow.
Okay.
Then you get to the white water.
Mm.
So now this is a
Yeah.
very different way of being in the flow. You have to be
Yeah.
much more attentive, and you have to be much more engaged.
Uh-huh.
And then it may be coming a waterfall. Well, you don't want to go over the waterfall, so there may
Okay.
be things that you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
It may be raining, it may be storming, and the sun can be out. These are all, flows
I love
that
that.
are helpful if you're aware of them and you can adjust your behavior to fit neatly within them. That
Yeah.
makes your life more effectively and efficiently. Or I guess maybe another way to say it is it's a whole lot easier to live life going downstream than trying to fight going upstream.
Yeah, no, I love that visual that you have. It, I think it's so beautiful. And, how do you think that understanding our inner world can also make us more effective in creating social change? Because I've done a lot of social justice work myself too, and I believe that it takes a lot of inner work as well, like even acknowledging our
Hmm.
biases and prejudices and, even, yeah, just understanding ourselves so that we can also do the work. So yeah, do you see that connection between like doing inner work and also like how people can become more effective like social change agents?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So we have two sides to our brain.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's the right side is actually neurologically linked to the amygdala, and the
Okay.
amygdala is the primitive primordial danger survival center of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole piece of our consciousness that has to do with surviving, dealing with danger, avoiding discomfort, and the like.
Mm-hmm.
That part of our consciousness is rational and it is language based.
Uh-huh.
The other part of our consciousness is not language based. It's
Mm-hmm.
intuitive. It is where we have those sensations like being connected,
Okay.
where we might feel spiritual, where we might feel we might sense awe and beauty, those things.
Okay.
And one of the things that I don't think we do enough of is take the
Mm-hmm.
time to stimulate that other half.
Okay.
It's an entire half of our intelligence is understimulated. And so I
Yeah.
think we don't take enough time to put ourselves in places where we feel beauty or see a sunrise. We don't
Yeah.
take time to curate our environment and put pictures of loved ones around us. I look
Right.
behind you and I know that there are
Yeah.
things that you have in your environment that when you look them, they bring you joy.
Right.
And that is
Right.
so vitally important. Look at the plants that are over there.
Uh-huh.
It's something that's growing that you can tend to, that you can care
Yeah.
for. I mean, these are all important things. What a difference it would be in your life if that was just a blank wall,
Right. No,
right?
definitely. Mm-hmm.
And so that, to me, to talk to you and see that behind you really represents, an intentional
Mm-hmm.
purpose in your life to create balance and to
Yeah.
keep yourself stable. And that's a wonderful thing. And it's not something that everybody does.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for your compliments as well. But, I've been thinking a lot about that, but how can you, what advice can you give to people to like recognize more of that beauty? And because I think, yeah, I'm even thinking when I'm trying to like market my podcast as well, just having more hope and beauty out there. But yeah, I just keep hearing people talk about how the algorithm even like pushes out content that shocks us or that's more negative. And I don't know, people just say that maybe we're just getting so used to the negative. We're drawn to like, true crime or, other like negative shock stories. And yeah, so how could you recommend that people start leaning more towards, I think, that beauty, which is more like healing and positive for them versus like being drawn toward more of the negative?
I think that the first step comes with recognizing that the negative is the default.
Oh, you think
We,
so? What? How come though? Because I've noticed
well,
that
because it
too.
is survival. Survival comes
Oh, okay.
first. If you don't survive, you can't experience anything else.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Look at Maslow's,
Hmm.
hierarchy of needs. The first thing is food and shelter.
Okay.
The first thing is avoidance of danger. And
Right.
we are hardwired. I mean, we lived as hunter gatherers, evolved as hunter
Hmm.
gatherers. Think of it. It might help to think of it physically.
Okay.
In the jungle, there's not a lot of fat, and there's not a lot of sugar, and there's not a
Hmm.
lot of salt.
Right.
So we evolved to crave fat
Okay.
and sugar and salt, which
Okay.
works really well in the jungle because it makes us want to find the wild boar. And when we
Okay.
do, we feast on it, but then the next day we're back to eating wild onions and berries.
Okay.
And we might be eating wild onions and berries for months before we get another wild boar.
Right.
So we evolved to
Uh-huh.
search out those things because they are dense nutrients and they're good for us.
Uh-huh.
But when our environment evolves faster than we do as an animal,
Hmm.
and now the craving for fat and sugar leads us to a McDonald's where we
Oh,
get more fat and sugar in one meal than we used to get. No wonder there
mm.
is an epidemic of obesity. No
Hmm.
wonder we're going. I'll tell you a funny story about Costa Rica here. When
Okay.
I first came down here to Costa Rica, I was a heavy boy. I was 320 pounds, size 58.
Hmm.
And I went to a store once and I asked, Senora, no tienes nada en mi tamaño. You don't have anything in my size?
Hmm.
And she looked at me, and all the Costa Ricans were very slim, small people.
Hmm.
And she looked at me and said, "Oh no, no, sir, I don't have anything in your size." And
Hmm.
I couldn't nowhere. So over the last 20 years, now we have Taco Bell, we have McDonald's, and we
Hmm.
have Kentucky Fried Chicken just opened up.
Okay.
And now they do have size 56
Uh-huh.
because the environment changed and it took advantage of our ingrained need for fat and sugar. And those
Mm.
people who make money off us know it. And
Yeah.
so they use the environmental mistake that we are
Okay.
to become rich
Uh-huh.
at our expense. And
Right.
so that's the default. Now, we have to satisfy that before we can start going up the hierarchy of needs and start looking for things that are beautiful and to satisfy our need for art and music
Hmm.
and the like. But the problem is that our sense of danger has changed as well.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay. In the jungle, danger was a cobra, a
Right.
tiger,
Hmm.
a horde of bees,
Hmm.
something that was acute, it was identifiable, it had to be dealt with, and then once it was over, it was over.
Uh-huh.
Today, what we call stress is
Hmm.
really a misnomer. Stress is really low grade danger.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so low grade danger looks like a deadline. It looks like getting your 10-year-old kid to
Hmm.
school on time.
Right.
It looks like her being upset about this, or you're having to get a podcast, or a guest not showing up.
Right.
All of those stressors affect you biochemically the same way that a cobra did, but
Oh,
they are chronic. They're happening
right.
all the time. So
Hmm.
you still have that hormonal cortisol and adrenaline circulating in your body.
Okay.
Those hormones actually eat away at the sheathing of your nervous system, and over time
Hmm.
cause you to biologically be more stressed out.
Oh,
And
okay.
so we literally are eating our nervous systems
Right.
because the system that we evolved
Mm-hmm.
to save us is now working against us.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by it's the default. So
Mm-hmm.
what we have to realize is the first step is understand that our survival system now is not something that's helpful, and
Mm-hmm.
that there's not a lot we can do about it. It's hardwired. It's
Uh-huh.
hardwired. There's not a lot we can do about that. It's all about survival, and our mind doesn't know the difference between a missed deadline and a snake in the grass. It doesn't know the difference.
Okay. Right.
But the idea of the other side being stimulated, it used to be a natural process. We'd go out during the day, we'd hunt, we'd come home, we'd sit around the fire, we'd look up at the stars, we would imagine, we would
Mm-hmm.
rest, we would relax, our view of the world would become broader, we would make up our stories, we looked at values. So that was given a chance. We don't give it a chance to express itself these days. So
Okay.
so here is, yes, what can we do?
Right.
First, understand that our survival system is there and there's not a lot we can do to reduce it. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing is we just have to accept the fact that we have to intentionally increase our exposure to beauty. We have to do it
Right.
intentionally. It isn't going to
Okay.
happen on its own.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just sit back and wait for it to happen.
Right.
We have to go out and search out our beauty.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. That actually reminds me of something. So I've just like launched a YouTube channel and I've been doing that too. So I have this little sub channel. It's called Adventures and Reflections with Denise. And I just walk around different things because that's what I'm hoping to show people that, there's beauty all around us. So I even like take
Hmm.
videos as I'm getting to my destination because I noticed that actually as I was like going there, I'm like, there's so many like beautiful green hills that I pass all the time, but I didn't notice until I was intentional about like I want to create content. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
let me video this because like it's so like that's I think I opened it with that too, that there's so much beauty around us all the time. We just need to stop and really listen. And that another
Hmm.
thing that I want to start doing on the channel too is showing like there's beautiful people around us all the time. We just got to
All the
stop and
time.
listen to people, and that's what I'm hoping to do. Just like catch people on the street, asking them what gives them hope. So, I'm hoping that people do realize there's more beauty around us, I think, than like the negative that we can be drawn to more often.
Hmm. It's wonderful. It's great work. Thank you for
Yeah.
doing that.
No, and thank you for the work that you're doing too. And I'd love to talk with you more about your platform too. So you describe your platform as helping people think better, not telling them what to think. So I'd love to hear more about that. What does thinking better actually require of us right now?
Well, I think that there are practices.
Uh-huh.
In the world of meditation, it's not about sitting down and quieting the mind.
Mm-hmm.
That really doesn't have any function or purpose,
Mm-hmm.
because the mind will never quiet.
Okay.
Your mouth is not going to stop salivating. Your
Mm-hmm.
brain is not going to stop producing thoughts. I mean,
Okay.
it's just what it does.
Right.
Um, but there are ways to train your mind to think better.
Mm-hmm.
A great example is the taxi cab drivers in London.
Okay.
Um, the hippocampus is
Mm-hmm.
an organ in the brain that has to do with directional and spatial awareness.
Okay.
You know, so the taxi cab drivers, in order to be licensed, the black cab drivers in London, in
Mm-hmm.
order to be licensed, they have to pass a test where they know virtually every alley and every
Oh,
street in London by name.
okay.
So they have to do a lot of studying. So the
Mm-hmm.
scientists decided we're going to do something. We're going to take a picture of their hippocampus
Uh-huh.
before they study, and then they'll go through this months of studying spatial connections, and then we'll see if it's changed. And you know what?
Okay.
The organ itself, the physical organ, it grew
Uh-huh.
longer, taller, wider, and thicker.
Oh, okay.
So they actually used their mind to
Uh-huh.
restructure their brain
Uh-huh.
to make their mind work better for them.
Oh, okay.
See? So
Wow.
just like you go to the gym to build up your
Right.
muscles
Right.
so that you can be stronger, you
Mm-hmm.
can literally build your brain so that you think stronger. And
Wow.
it, again, the meditation is not about having la la kumbaya, tree hugging, quiet peace and stability.
Mm-hmm.
It's about making your brain stronger
Okay.
so that the problems that used to be big deals to you
Uh-huh.
now become little deals.
Okay.
Just like if
Yeah.
my biceps is stronger, picking up a 5 gallon bottle
Right.
used to be a big task. I'd
Mm-hmm.
have to struggle with it. If I make my muscles stronger, I can lift that up and it's not a big deal. I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
And so you can
I love that.
actually train your brain to be stronger so that it easily deals with all the things which used to throw you for a loop. And that's where the peace comes from. It doesn't come from eliminating distractions, it comes from making your cup bigger. You
Okay,
can't
I love
stop the
that.
world from pouring in the distractions, but you can
Right.
make your cup bigger.
Yeah.
And so we cultivate compassion, we cultivate generosity, we cultivate loving kindness, equanimity. These are called the four measurables. And so we actually work on building up neural pathways in the brain that allow us to meet hate with love.
Okay. And
Because
I love that.
everything that is disturbing, everything that causes us grief has an antidote.
Mm-hmm.
Greed has an antidote of generosity.
Yeah.
Hate
I love
has
that.
the antidote of compassion.
Yeah.
Ignorance has the antidote of wisdom. And
Yeah.
so, if I train myself to develop these skills, then all of the other things. I love it that Mr. Tallarico,
Uh-huh.
who's running for Senate in Texas,
Okay.
and Mr. Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of Department of War now, his pastor. You know, Tallarico is a Christian, a devoutly Christian, loving, not a Christian nationalist. He is a follower of the values of Jesus, of love and compassion and the like. And he is
Mhm.
throwing the Christian nationalists on their ear because
Uh-huh.
he is speaking the true values of
Yeah.
Jesus, not of this Christian nationalism craziness that they've come up with. Anyway, so
Yeah.
this pastor said of him, I hate him. I think that he should die and be
Um,
crucified along with Jesus. That's what this
um,
pastor said of James Tallarico. And you know what James Tallarico said? He will
um,
never be able to hate me more than I love him.
oh, wow.
And that just totally disarmed it.
Yeah.
That was the antidote. That was the perfect thing to say.
Oh, okay.
And if he means that authentically, he can withstand all of that spite and all of that hate that might be thrown his way, just rolls
Yeah.
off his back.
Okay.
Just rolls off his back.
Yeah. No, that's really beautiful. But one thing I was wondering, how do you think that people can start having more deeper conversations with one another versus just like staying like surface level or yeah, I'd love to just hear because I feel like people do need to like think deeper about things and also have conversations about what they're thinking because as we talked before, I feel like they just take whatever's thrown at them and taking them as fact. But yeah, how would you encourage people to start thinking deeper and start having deeper conversations with one another?
There is a skill called active listening.
Okay. Hmm.
And you can Google that, or you can look it up on YouTube, and
Uh-huh.
it'll teach you all. But there's a few different steps. But the first thing is say to first to name it and say,
Hmm.
I want to engage in a conversation and actively listen to you.
Hmm.
And so you listen to the other person and and without interruption,
Mm.
you listen to them until they are finished saying what it is that they want to say.
Uh-huh.
And then you will respond back to them. So, what I hear you saying is,
Okay.
and then you repeat back to them what you heard them say. And they'll either say, yeah, you got it, or they'll say, well, not exactly. I mean, I said this and you said this. So he said, so then the listener says, okay, let me see if I have it now. Then what I'm
Mm.
hearing you say is this. And then they bring in the mind, and they have this conversation until the talker can confirm that the listener accurately got what he transmitted.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that is
Right.
a skill, and it's something that you can practice with your spouse, with a friend, and everything
Okay.
else. But I would say if you develop the skill of listening,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't have to worry about becoming a great conversationalist and talking to people,
Okay.
because once people feel heard, then they are open to listening to what you have to say.
Right.
The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey says one of those habits is first seek to understand and then seek to be understood.
Okay.
First seek to understand and then seek to be understood. I'll tell you a little story about that.
Yeah.
When I was in Miami, this is probably before your time. This is back in the days of Jimmy Carter's presidency, when
Okay.
there was something called the Mariel boat lift, and hundreds of boats went
Mm-hmm.
over to Cuba to get family members, and the boats were filled with inmates and mentally disturbed people.
Uh-huh.
And Miami was flooded with these people back in the times that made the movie Scarface about those
Okay.
times. Anyway, I got one of the political prisoners that was brought back on the Mariel boat lift. He went in and committed, I don't know, 22
Mm-hmm.
robberies in 5 different bars. And
Okay.
and they he was looking at a lot of time in jail, and I was representing him. I worked out a plea bargain for
Okay.
12 years, and he said, I ain't gonna, I'm not, in Spanish, of course, but he said, I'm not gonna make any deals with the state. I hate the state. The state is, I'm not gonna make any deals with them. I don't trust them, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, if he didn't take the deal and he went to trial, he would probably wind up spending the rest of his life in prison.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do.
Uh-huh.
Screw the state. Just screw them. Well, don't worry about them. We're just going to go in there and we're going to tell them to go take a hike and throw ourselves on the mercy of the court and see what
Mm-hmm.
happens. He goes, that's fine. I'm not bad. Let's just do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew the judge. Fortunately, I knew the judge, and we went out there. And the first thing the judge says, well, Mr. Martin, do you have a plea? And I go,
Mm-hmm.
no, Judge, we do not. We do not have a plea. We are not going to make any deals with the state. And I pointed at the
Yeah.
district attorney. I pointed at him. We're not going to make any deals with those people. We can't trust them. This is
Right.
terrible. I mean, people are all looking in wide eye, like, what is this guy doing? It was almost
Right.
contemptuous. And I just went on saying how terrible the state was and how untrustworthy they were, and that we were just going to throw ourselves on the mercy of the court, blah, blah, blah. And then I
Mm-hmm.
told the judge what they offered. They offered me 12 years, and we're throwing it back in their face. Well, the
Okay.
judge figured it out at this point, and he
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sentence him to 12 years. And he got
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same sentence.
Okay.
And he went out of that courtroom and turned around. He got down on his knees and he shook my hand, because
Okay.
I had listened to him and I had stood
Yeah.
up for him and I had heard him and he had been heard. And
Yeah.
he got to say and what he needed to say. And that was all that he needed in life. And he was ready to go take his 12 years. And he walked out of there with his head high. And
Yeah.
that's how important it is for people to feel heard.
Yeah, no, what a beautiful story, and thank you so much for your time today, but before
Mhm.
we wrap up today, I'd love to talk with
Okay.
you more about your work with your church. So you helped to get your
hmm
church certified as open and affirming. What did that
hmm
process teach you about creating inclusive communities?
And it taught me that working with committees is extremely
Mhm.
taxing. It's
Okay.
hard, especially when you are kind of like a get it done, let's do it person.
Uh-huh.
If you're creative and you want to get things done,
Yeah.
you have to remember that when you're working with a committee,
Uh-huh.
you can only move as fast as the slowest member.
Okay.
You can't go flying out with all your great ideas and not bring everybody along with you.
Yeah.
So if you need to back up and hold, if it's going to take another week or two, you know, it's all right. Now, the universe has been around for billions and billions of years. Another week or two is not going to hurt.
Uh-huh.
Nothing is that urgent.
Yeah.
But people need to sit with new ideas, and they need to be with them and sit with them. It takes a while for the mind to allow a new idea to create the neural pathways that are necessary to
Yeah.
own it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to hear it over and over and over again, and sometimes you have to repeat things over and over. But again, it's that going with the flow thing.
Right, right.
Okay. Now the forces wanting our church to be open and affirming, which means
Mm-hmm.
that we're open to anybody in terms of gender identity, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of their belief systems. Our doors are open to all of God's children, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a passionate and it's a moving desire. But the forces of the committee that are making it happen have to be
Right.
taken into account as well. So you just need to be awake and aware.
Yeah, no, I love that. And, how do you think that people can start to build more inclusive communities and, yeah, just have it as a place where people feel like they belong? I think it's so beautiful that you did that within your church. Yeah, and I'd
I've
love to
got
see
to.
that in like the broader communities as well.
So if you think of yourself
Uh-huh.
as having many diverse pieces,
Okay.
okay, you think of this. You get to the top of the expressway at
Mm-hmm.
the exit, and there's a
Yeah.
guy standing there, and he's holding a sign. It says, "We'll work for food," or "My house burnt down. I have nothing. Please help,"
Mm-hmm.
or "I've got
Right.
3 kids and lost my job." You've got some sign out there, right?
Right.
And so you got the angel over on one shoulder and you got the
Mm-hmm.
devil over on the other shoulder, right? And the angel is saying, "Oh, you really ought to help this guy. I don't want his kids to be hungry." And then
Yeah.
the devil's saying, "Yeah, but he's maybe a drug addict and he's going to use them to
Yeah.
buy drugs, and you don't want to enable his behavior." The other one saying, "Yeah, but he might be hungry and he might really need the
Yeah.
money." The other one saying, "Yeah, he's only faking it and he's scamming you," and
Yeah.
right. So we have all of these disparate parts of our own personality,
Mm-hmm.
and before I think we are good ambassadors at bringing people together, we
Mm-hmm.
have to bring our own personality pieces together.
Yeah.
We have to work
Yeah.
on becoming a harmonious place where I think Gandhi said, when my thoughts and my words and my actions are all
Right.
aligned, it is then when I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to work. It takes some work and some awareness and some internal work to try to
Yeah.
bring those pieces into harmony,
Right.
and to be able to notice when they're out of harmony and to gently bring them back into the fold.
Right.
And by learning to do that within ourselves, we learn to do it with other people.
Yeah, no, I love that. Actually, when you were talking, it reminds me just of the discourse that we've been having or the narrative around like even having benefits for people, whether it's like yeah, just like food benefits or, other kind of benefits just to help support people. But yeah, I just hear people say like, no, people are going to abuse the system. Let's not, give
Hmm.
it to them. But it just like, I don't know. I think for me, it's just like, I don't know how people are okay with like people not having the healthcare that they need or like the basic means of survival like more worried about like maybe the very few people who might be abusing the system versus like giving it to people who really need it, who I think make up more of the majority. And I've done a lot of work with those kind of communities too, and people aren't
Hmm.
abusing the system for the most part. And I don't know why it just feels like there's this like common thinking that like let's not do this because they're using it for the wrong purposes. And
Right.
yeah, that frustrates me a lot though.
Yeah, I think that we all fall on a continuum. At one
Mm,
end, there's the feeling there's not enough to go around and we need to get ours.
right.
And at the other end, there is enough to go around. If we all
Hmm.
work cooperatively, there's enough to go around. And
Right.
somewhere on that continuum, I think we all fall. Some of us more in the middle. We
Hmm.
see both sides. Some of them more to one side or the other. But I think that those are the driving base beliefs that thrust us
Uh-huh.
into the rest of the thinking. Because if I think
Yeah.
there's not enough to go around and we got to get ours,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm in this competitive kind of
Right.
world. The other is that I'm in a cooperative world, and there really is enough to go around, but we have to
Right.
learn to work together. And both of those sides have a
Yeah.
certain correctness to them, but
Mm-hmm.
not at the neither of them at the extremes.
Right.
There's got to be a balance.
Yeah, and where do you think we can find that balance? I think one thing that frustrates me is like to know how much wealth we have in this country. That,
Hmm.
why are there people without houses or who are struggling to eat or don't even have health care? So I think I'm in the wagon that like there is enough to go around, but I don't know. Then I feel like people start labeling, oh, you're just socialist or you just want to take away
Hmm.
from people. But it's just like, no, it's not it. Yeah, it's just more like I just don't understand when people think it's okay if like there's people who like have a lot of money when there's people who can't eat every day. I'm like I don't know. I don't know because I wrestle with that every day too, like how to get
Yeah.
people to be more empathetic for other people, seeing people and as humans.
I agree with you. And I think that in the middle, most of us realize that people need to be taken care of and there has to be a
Hmm.
safety net. And back in the days when we weren't so polarized,
Yeah.
the Republicans could bank on the Democrats to take care of the safety net. And the
Mm.
Democrats could bank on the Republicans in taking care of our fiscal health. They
Okay.
would watch the money and we would watch
Mm.
the safety net. And we both understood that we each formed a
Right.
balance on the other. And in the middle, we found that balance because, look, there are limited resources and we can't build a mansion for
Right.
every person that's
Right.
homeless.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
there is some kind of balance that we need to come with. I think the
Hmm.
problem is now that we've moved more to the extremes, we tend
Hmm.
to see the other side at their
Okay.
extreme
Right.
instead of the more balanced view.
Right. No. Well, thank you again for your time today. I had such a wonderful
Well,
time talking with
my
you. And I
pleasure.
truly hope that people listening can start to challenge their own assumptions and their way of thinking too. But just lastly, as we wrap up, how can people find you if they'd like to connect with you?
They can certainly right now they can go
Mhm.
onto my website, A Wise and a Happy Life.
Okay.
But the podcast, I'm
Mhm.
found. My blog is found on Substack
Okay.
under The Flow with Bob Martin, and my podcast is on any one of the outlets: Spotify, Apple, all the outlets. The Flow with Bob Martin.
Okay, great. Thank you again. And are there any last messages that you'd like to leave with my listeners? Anything that you might not have been able to bring up before? I'd love to just offer you that space if you want it.
Go find your beauty.
Yeah. No, I love that. No, and I love that note to end our conversation. But, thank
Hmm.
you again. I think you're doing such beautiful
Sure.
work, really incredible things for the community. And I hope to stay in touch and I hope that you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for being here and tuning in to Voices That Propel Us, stories of justice, action, and community. Your presence in this movement matters. If today's conversation moved you, share it, talk about it, and keep the work going. Together, we're not just imagining change, we're making it. Until next time, stay bold, stay grounded, and stay in the fight.
Every time I feel so mad and sad and bad, I say to myself, relax, lean back, it's a brand new day. And every time I feel so down that a frown